Please take note of the following disclaimer. This is a free webinar and no attendee has paid or will be asked to pay to join this session. The webinar will be hosted by Upskill Academy in conjunction with the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA. This forms part of the Arto national rollout program of the RTIA to create awareness. Welcome to the Arto and the Demerit system What's Next webinar. While we wait for all the attendees to join, let us cover the housekeeping rules for this webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 3 hours, including the question and answer section. All participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. Questions submitted prior to an hour before the start of the webinar will be answered first during the question and answer section. Any additional questions can be submitted via the chat room during the webinar at any time. These will be answered if there is enough time after the pre-submitted questions. There will be a short 15-minute interval at 12:30. Please do not log out or leave the session during the interval period. The recording of this presentation will be provided approximately 72 hours after we conclude. The recording will only be available for a limited period. Welcome to the Arto and the Demerit system What's Next webinar. While we wait for all the attendees to join, let us cover the housekeeping rules for this webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 3 hours, including the question and answer section. All participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. Questions submitted prior to an hour before the start of the webinar will be answered first during the question and answer section. Any additional questions can be submitted via the chat room during the webinar at any time. These will be answered if there is enough time after the pre-submitted questions. There will be a short 15-minute interval at 12:30. Please do not log out or leave the session during the interval period. The recording of this presentation will be provided approximately 72 hours after we conclude. The recording will only be available for a limited period. Welcome to the Arto and the Demerit system What's Next webinar. While we wait for all the attendees to join, let us cover the housekeeping rules for this webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 3 hours, including the question and answer section. All participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. Questions submitted prior to an hour before the start of the webinar will be answered first during the question and answer section. Any additional questions can be submitted via the chat room during the webinar at any time. These will be answered if there is enough time after the pre-submitted questions. There will be a short 15-minute interval at 12:30. Please do not log out or leave the session during the interval period. The recording of this presentation will be provided approximately 72 hours after we conclude. The recording will only be available for a limited period. Welcome to the Arto and the Demerit system What's Next webinar. While we wait for all the attendees to join, let us cover the housekeeping rules for this webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 3 hours, including the question and answer section. All participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. Questions submitted prior to an hour before the start of the webinar will be answered first during the question and answer section. Any additional questions can be submitted via the chat room during the webinar at any time. These will be answered if there is enough time after the pre-submitted questions. There will be a short 15-minute interval at 12:30. Please do not log out or leave the session during the interval period. The recording of this presentation will be provided approximately 72 hours after we conclude. The recording will only be available for a limited period. Welcome to the Arto and the Demerit system What's Next webinar. While we wait for all the attendees to join, let us cover the housekeeping rules for this webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 3 hours, including the question and answer section. All participants will be muted to enable the speakers to present without interruption. Questions submitted prior to an hour before the start of the webinar will be answered first during the question and answer section. Any additional questions can be submitted via the chat room during the webinar at any time. These will be answered if there is enough time after the pre-submitted questions. There will be a short 15-minute interval at 12:30. Please do not log out or leave the session during the interval period. The recording of this presentation will be provided approximately 72 hours after we conclude. The recording will only be available for a limited period. Please take note of the following disclaimer. This is a free webinar and no attendee has paid or will be asked to pay to join this session. The webinar will be hosted by Upskill Academy in conjunction with the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA. This forms part of the Arto National Rollout Program of the RTIA to create awareness. Hello everyone and welcome to the Arto and the Demerit System What's Next webinar. Your host for this webinar is Liesl Erasmus, and she is the Creative and Content Director of Upskill Academy. We want to thank our esteemed panel from the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA, for joining us today. We are all looking forward to their presentations and the information they will be sharing with us today. Before I hand it over to Liesl to introduce the panel, we would like to take a short moment of your time to introduce you to Upskill Academy. Upskill Academy is the creators of simplified courses for sometimes complicated yet current, relevant, and mostly required learning for compliance with various laws. The aim is to quickly, easily, and affordably upskill your workforce with the relevant information required for compliance with regulatory matters that may have far-reaching and negative effects on your business. The internet is your classroom. Study anytime, anywhere on any smart device. Train, verify, certify in 3 easy steps. So why did we decide to develop a course in Arto? It was a no-brainer. Altogether, our team has a total of 13 years of experience in traffic fine management. With this knowledge and the knowledge our team has in understanding the Arto Act and how it will positively affect the management of traffic fines nationally for companies, we decided to develop an e-learning course. Arto and the new Demerit point system is not all doom and gloom. Yes, if you do not update your policies, train your administration staff and drivers, and implement the correct procedures and point monitoring systems, then Arto will affect you negatively. You are probably thinking, what can be positive about Arto? Let us look at a few positives. You will be able to access your traffic fines nationally on one system. No more contacting various municipalities or going to various traffic departments to obtain a list of fines. Applying to have a fine reduced on behalf of a driver will also fall away due to the 50% automatic discount. Another positive is that you will be able to submit your elective options electronically, so less paperwork and no more standing in queues at courts. The biggest positive is that your drivers will be more responsible if you upskill them effectively in what the consequences will be for non-compliance. One of the questions most asked by some of the registrants for this webinar is, what are the risks for our company if we do not comply with Arto? We are quickly going to look at some of the potential risks for your proxy, drivers, vehicles, and your insurance when it comes to Arto and the Demerit point system. Let us start by looking at the risk to the company's proxy. The good news is that if you implement sufficient administrative processes and educate your traffic fine administrators efficiently, there is no risk to your proxy. But this is all dependent on following due process. Meet Bob. Bob is your average working employee that agreed to become a proxy when asked by his boss. Bob was informed what it means, but did not understand the risks. Bob is the proxy for a corporate company called FexCorp. The company did not implement Arto efficiently and did not upskill the person that deals with their traffic fines. This means that fines were not nominated to the responsible drivers, and therefore the demerit points were added to Bob's driver's license. Bob now takes the train to work, as his license is suspended. FexCorp is trying its best to implement the systems, but due to their lack of knowledge, Bob keeps on receiving more demerit points, and ultimately his license will get cancelled after the third suspension. So, what are the risks to your drivers? If you implement Arto correctly within your company and upskill your traffic fine administrators, then all fines will be nominated to the responsible driver and demerit points allocated to the driver's license. Ultimately, your drivers can get their licenses suspended or cancelled after a third suspension. This in turn will mean a loss of job and loss of income. The other risk to the company when it comes to drivers is that if you do not have your policies and procedures in place, and you did not upskill your driver, you might not be able to take any steps against the driver. Internal memos and notices around the office might not be seen as sufficient training. A trained driver will most definitely be more careful and will be more likely to adhere to the road traffic laws of South Africa. Did you know that the vehicles in your fleet can also receive demerit points? Your vehicles can therefore also receive a suspended license and cancelled license after a third suspension. This means that you will have to implement a system to monitor the points of your vehicles. You will also need to upskill anyone responsible for ensuring that your vehicles are licensed and roadworthy. If your fleet cannot operate at full capacity, it will affect your revenue, delivery of service to your clients, and this will negatively affect your brand. Lastly, we are going to look at the risk to your insurance. If your company does not implement an Arto policy and procedure and a system to monitor demerits, you might not be aware that a driver is using a vehicle with a suspended or cancelled license. Now, if that driver has an accident with a suspended or cancelled license, your insurance company will not pay out the claim. You will also not be able to hold the driver responsible for any damages if the driver was not provided sufficient training in Arto and the consequences of non-compliance. Upskill Academy offers 2 e-learning courses. The first course, Understanding Arto, is for HR, managers, and administrators. The course contains 6 modules and covers the whole act from when points are allocated, when drivers' licenses are suspended, to demerit points, how to make Arto a core business focus, and the consequences of non-compliance. The course also includes a downloadable Arto policies and procedure document template, which can use as a starting point and adjust to your own company. The second Understanding Arto driver training course was specifically designed as a tool for companies to upskill their drivers. This course contains 6 modules covering everything from the demerit point system, consequences of demerit points, how to use the online system, and more. The newest module of this course covers what your company's Arto policy and procedure might look like and ensures the driver understands the consequences of not complying. Our training is a perfect solution with minimal disturbance yet maximum impact. Both courses are quick to complete, packed with all the needed information with graded questionnaires and a certificate of completion as proof of training and compliance. The courses are also available in 3 languages: English, Xhosa, and Zulu. Welcome to the Understanding Arto course.
Wamkelekile kwinkqubo ukuqonda umthetho i-Arto Act. Siyakwamkela esifundeni sokuqonda i-Arto.
Companies are fully embracing e-learning and online learning platforms due to their simplicity of use. We offer the ability to monitor student performance and progress and offer completion of compliance certificates. Cost-effectively mitigate risk for your company. So, how does it work? Step 1 is to select a course. Once you decided on a course, click on Enroll and follow the checkout process. Access tokens are available for bulk purchases. Just contact us for details. Step 2 is to log into your profile and get started. All courses consist of modules with videos followed by short questionnaires. The system automatically saves your progress, so you can do the course over time. The system also has course compliance controls that require video completion to move on from one module to another. As soon as you've completed all the modules and passed the graded questionnaires, you will receive a certificate of completion. All certifications will remain on the Upskill Academy platform for future access if required. Train, verify, certify, in 3 easy steps. Our clients say it best. Here are just a few testimonials. If you are interested in any of our Arto courses, please feel free to contact us after the webinar. Before we proceed and introduce our guest speakers from the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, please take note again of the following disclaimer. This is a free webinar and no attendee has paid or will be asked to pay to join this session. The webinar will be hosted by Upskill Academy in conjunction with the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA. This forms part of the Arto national rollout program of the RTIA to create awareness.
Hi, good day everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Liesel Erasmus, and I am the Creative and Content Director for Upskill Academy. So we would like to thank you everybody for joining us today, and then we would also like to thank you our panel from the RTIA. I am going to hand over now to Busi Mogale. She is the Manager of Special Programs at the RTIA, and she is going to introduce the panel to us. Busi, if you can just unmute yourself.
Good morning, Liesel. I'm not sure if my video is off, so I don't know if it should be on or what, but
I think it's on you.
It's fine. Okay, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Busi Mogale from the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, responsible for special programs. In our panel, we will have 3 speakers from the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. We're going to have Mr. Mondem Kalipi, who is a senior manager for media and marketing relations. He will be taking us through the Arto processes, including the elective options. And we will have also our second speaker, Ms. Maya Lippert, who is a manager at the back office at the RTIA. She'll be taking us through the administrative part of Arto as well as the fleet management system. And then lastly, not least, Mr. Gwazi Ngobo, who is the manager for the points demerit system, also at the RTIA. Those are the 3 speakers we'll be having today, Liesel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Busi, for introducing everybody to us. I'm going to hand over to Mondi. Mondi, you are welcome to start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liesel, and thank you, Busi. Thank you very much for this opportunity also on behalf of the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. I hope colleagues will really not be bored, but I'll try to go into detail into some of the areas. But my presentation, I should also indicate that some elements of it are also going to be covered by my colleagues, especially on the points demerit system, which is also a standalone aspect. I have a presentation that I'm going to share with everyone, but I should also indicate that as we have heard in the media, there are a number of good areas, as Liesel has indicated, around Arto, but there are also a number of misconceptions. But the good thing about it is that some of the people that we interact with now and again, they understand the significance of Arto, especially when it comes to curbing fatalities on our roads. Let me just put on the presentation quite now, colleagues. Let me just see if it is there. Okay, is it on the screen, Liesel and Busi? Can you see it, colleagues?
Yes, we can. Mr. Kalipi, go on.
Yes, Mondi.
Okay, thank you very much. I should indicate also that the unfortunate part also about Arto and the points demerit system is that there are all these negative connotations that are also attached to it, like people losing driving licenses. But I'm sure this presentation today is also going to be able to dispel some of the myths that are there around the implementation of Arto, especially the points demerit system. Mr. Gwazi Ngobo, my colleague, is going to go into detail in as far as that aspect is concerned. Let me just move on to the next slide. In terms of my presentation, I'm going to highlight a number of areas. I'm going to look at the mandate of the agency, that is the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, our vision, our mission, the situation of road safety in the country, factors contributing to fatalities that occur on our roads, as well as road traffic challenges. And we're also going to respond to some of the questions. Why do we need AARTO in South Africa? And what is the AARTO process? And what are the AARTO elective options? As Lizelle has indicated, the examples of infringements versus offenses, as we'll recall that before the implementation of this legislation, there were what were called minor infringements and major infringements. But this presentation is going to indicate the difference between the two, that is the infringements as well as the offenses. I'm going to touch briefly on the points demerit system. My colleague, Mr. Ngobo, is going to go into detail with regard to that aspect, as I'm also going to move into the AARTO infringements and the driving license implications, as well as operator implications. The presentation by Lizelle also spoke quite briefly as to what are the implications of the system on the proxies, on the companies, on the operators, on the drivers. I'm also going to highlight some of the payment platforms, as well as what amendments that came into existence with regard to this legislation. As you are all aware that AARTO is operational in 2 jurisdictions in the country, which is Tshwane and Johannesburg, and the amendments are talking to the national implementation of this legislation. I'm also going to speak briefly on the AARTO rollout phases. As we'll recall, recently the Minister of Transport, Minister Fikile Mbalula, spoke about the phasing in of AARTO. And here I highlighted on how this legislation is going to be rolled out to the rest of the country. In terms of the AARTO mandate, colleagues, the agency is created in terms of this piece of legislation, that is the AARTO legislation, the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act, as it was passed in 1998. And the RTIA is mandated to oversee full implementation of this legislation, that is nationally. And as we speak now, this legislation is currently implemented in Gauteng provinces under JMPD, that is Johannesburg Metropolis, as well as TMPD, and through also the Gauteng.
Sorry, Monde.
Can you hear me?
Sorry to disturb. There's a request that you change the presentation to presentation mode, so it can be clear.
Or should I put it in presentation mode? Okay,
yes,
apologies.
Please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Busi. So and then thank you so much. And then about 2 years ago, in 2019, the President Cyril Ramaphosa passed the amended legislation. That was in 2019. This amendment talks to a number of areas that I'll be referring to later in this presentation. As to what does the amendment mean, as I've already indicated that currently the legislation is being implemented in 2 jurisdictions, Tshwane and Joburg, but it is going to be rolled out to the rest of the country. And then this legislation has got all these different components. I'm not sure if the screen is visible, all of it now, because on my system it's cut a bit. I hope colleagues are able to see everything on this presentation.
Yes, we can see. Please carry on.
Okay, thank you. Initially, the legislation spoke to the establishment of the agency, as well as the administrative procedure. The administrative procedure, colleagues, I'm also going to come into it, which is like the procedure that presents all the different elective options from the time the driver is given an infringement notice on the roadside up until the time perhaps there's a full adjudication, that is looking at all the merits and demerits of an infringement and deciding whether perhaps the infringer should be held liable for a particular infringement that occurred on the road. Sometimes the AARTO process, colleagues, most critically, is that it allows infringers to take advantage of the various elective options. That is the major difference between this piece of legislation, which is AARTO, vis-a-vis the legislation that has been governing the administration of traffic offences before, which was called the Criminal Procedure Act. AARTO goes into detail when it comes to administrative adjudication of traffic offences rather than going through the court process. We are going to dwell onto that as to what that means as we go into the presentation, colleagues. This legislation also brings into existence the points demerit system. It also introduces the Arto traffic rehabilitation program. I think we should indicate, Lizelle, in your presentation there earlier on, the rollout of the points demerit system does not only end at a point where perhaps the road user finds himself or herself having his driving license taken away. It moves to the next level, where it also places an obligation on every one of us, whether we are individual drivers or whether we are employers, in the sense that if a road user, an infringer, or your employee has committed an infringement and has lost the driving license, the other onus that comes on all of us is to make sure that we go through the rehabilitation program so that we don't find a lot of our drivers perhaps being removed from our roads. So we also have that responsibility as well. The same applies with the introduction of the appeals tribunal, because as the RTIA, our role, we also have another body that is going to come in to dispute, or another dispute platform where infringers are going to appeal the outcomes that have been taken by the RTIA. So we are not an end it all as the RTIA. There is going to be another structure that is going to make sure that it reviews the decision that we take on the infringements of the different road users. And then when it comes to our vision, colleagues, we are looking at having those 3 pointers to have an informed, compliant, as well as road user community. We having an informed being a priority, because this is what we are doing now. As you are all aware, before you implement any piece of legislation, it's so important. It's so important that you inform the road users first about its implications, so that people know the do's and the don'ts before they got into the road. And after they have received all the necessary information, we appeal to all the road users to have the spirit to do their work with the spirit of compliance, to promote compliance, particularly voluntary compliance, because this is what you are appealing for as the RTIA. It should not be the type of compliance that is really forced down the throats of the road users. It should really be coming that is inbuilt. Hence, we always say that AARTO is designed to change the behavior of the road users at the end of the day, so that we have a safe road user community among all of us. And then when it comes to the mission of the agency, we are looking at ensuring that we promote compliance with traffic laws in South Africa through targeted road user and community education, as well as community programs. As the RTIA, we are running community education programs around AARTO. We have been through the various parts of the country, even before AARTO has been implemented in other jurisdictions. We have been there as part of our outreach program, and through also initiatives like this one that is done by Upskill Academy, we hope to reach more to road users in the country so that people are very much informed of the implications of this legislation, particularly the benefits of AARTO when it comes to changing the behavior of the road users. As Lizelle has indicated in the opening remarks, that this, at the end of the day, it should also change the fortunes of the different organizations, whether they are profit-making organizations or they are just mere companies or organizations that are providing simple types of service to road users. Promotion of procedurally fair, lawful and reasonable administrative adjudication. We are going to come into that, because at the end of the day, in the part where I'll be talking about the elective options, I'm going to highlight the flow of adjudication process from the roadside up until to a point where there is full adjudication over the traffic offenses. Levying of penalties, unfortunately, that is going to come in, especially if we continue to have elements of non-compliance among a number of road users. Imposing demerit points, effective administration and management of the suspension, cancellation, and of driving licenses, as well as operator cards. We are going to come into detail in as far as that aspect is concerned, because at the end of the day, we should make sure that that process is marked quite very, very tightly. There should not be unfairness in the manner perhaps in which we manage suspensions of traffic fines, in the manner in which we conduct cancellation of driving licenses, as well as operator cards. We'll make sure that the system is designed so that it is as much fair as possible, because at the end of the day, we do not want to take our eye off the ball. The ultimate intention of the rollout of AARTO is to make sure that we have that reduction of fatalities that occur on our roads. Rewarding compliant road users, the points demerit system is also going to speak into that, as to how do you reward compliant road users, because if you behave well on the road, in as much as you'll be accumulating perhaps some demerit points on the as you are driving on the road, but the more you drive better on the road, the more rewards you are going to receive as an infringer. So it's not like a very much of a punitive system. It also makes sure that your drivers who are on the road at the end of the day are able to get rewarded for good behavior. Just a brief analysis. This is what we have in South Africa. We have 58 million inhabitants, about 14,000 annual road traffic fatalities. It's very much of a concerning situation. If you look at other countries where perhaps the points demerit system or the AARTO process has been derived from, once it has been implemented, there's been a decline in terms of fatalities. We experience about 38 people per day, and it is estimated that the country spends about 166 billion per annum. That is in terms of the management of fatalities that occur on the road. That is from the time that the infringer gets involved in an accident, they get involved, the Department of Health, the involvement of the Road Accident Fund in ensuring that there is trauma management to those affected. This is what the country spends per annum to manage that entire chain of fatalities that occur on our roads. Most road traffic crashes are preceded by traffic offenses. This is such a critical point, because in as much as you might get some road users who are law-abiding on the road, you will still get others. These are the main problems on our roads, especially people who are called habitual infringers. We're not referring to perhaps once in a moment, but there are people who are habitual infringement. They will commit infringements because they know perhaps that there are no consequences. AARTO is designed to make sure that within a period of 3 months, the person feels the consequences of breaking the law on the road. We are going to come into more explanation as to what that means, colleagues. Again, these are main problems that we find on our roads: drunk driving, excessive speeding, overloading, reckless overtaking in dangerous spots, and the new one is what is called distracted driving, the use of cell phones on the roads, texting while you are driving. And as we all know that we do not have sufficient manpower on our roads to make sure that 24/7 we have traffic officers on the road to make sure that we reduce the number of fatalities that occur on our roads. So these are the main problems that we have on our roads. In terms of the totalities of factors that contribute to fatalities that occur on our roads, human factors are highlighted as the major one. They contribute about 73.6% in terms of this is human behavior. Besides what we'll pick up in terms of the quality of our roads and the environment and the quality of vehicles that contribute about 14.1%, human behavior is the major problem. That is why AARTO seeks to target individual drivers on our roads so that we can reduce that statistic there. In terms of the challenges, authorities are using different systems for law enforcement in the country. All 8 other provinces are still on the Criminal Procedure Act, but sooner or later with the rollout of AARTO, all of them will be on AARTO. There is low or non-payment of traffic fines, and there are no consequences. AARTO is going to make sure that there are consequences for every infringer, or for every infringement that is committed on the road. Offenders from other jurisdictions get away with traffic offenses, as well as the problem of traffic fines or offenses that are not a priority, or they get withdrawn without stating facts or reason. So this is where also our court system is finding itself inundated with these traffic fines. And our court system has got to pay attention to major criminal matters, meaning that if, for example, you are driving with a license, with an expired license disc, your driving license has expired, or a worn out tire, or those matters are treated like as infringements that can contribute significantly to crashes that occur on our roads. But they need to be handled differently. It's not matters that should really be taken to the court of law. Hence, we have AARTO today, so that AARTO is able to address all these matters. And then we are part of the global community, colleagues, in terms of addressing fatalities that occur on our roads. So this is what we are really mainly designed for. You'll see in this pillar, in this chain, you have other role players that come in, like the likes of the RTMC, road safety management, what happens on the roads. And then we have a SANRAL responsible for the safer roads. And then we have the department and other role players responsible for safer vehicles. And then AARTO or RTI comes in under Pillar 4, where we are responsible for ensuring that we have safer road users. Here we are appealing to the behavior of the road users. And then if all that fails, and then we find ourselves under Pillar 4, that is post-crash management. This is where your road accident fund comes in. And then the global community has also indicated that we also need Pillar 7, which is to make sure that our young people are also involved in road safety management. So this is the pillar, the model as designed by the United Nations, and we are part of this. And our responsibility as South Africans is to make sure that we also assist the global community in making sure that we halve the number of fatalities and deaths that occur on our roads in 10 years' time. That is from this year up until 2030. Some of the challenges that we have: high number of crashes that occur on our roads, the habitual traffic offenders who act with impunity on our roads, no real punitive measures to deter infringers from committing infringements on our roads, as well as traffic contraventions not being a priority in our courts. I think I've touched briefly as far as these particular challenges, colleagues, but AARTO is mainly meant to deal mainly with bullet point 2, habitual infringers, so that we are able to change the behavior of those road users that happen on our roads. And at the same time, AARTO infringements are not going to go to courts anymore, but these are going to be handled administratively. And then some of the solutions is to make sure that we also increase compliance to road traffic laws and significantly reduce deaths that happen on our roads. We also have a responsibility to make sure that there is high visibility and efficient law enforcement on our roads, as well as effective public awareness and communication, as well as public education programs across the country. I think with the advent of social media, we hope to make use of that particular platform a lot. We are going to come into that later to really indicate what sort of platforms that we have as the RTIA to really promote, because at the end of the day, in as much as we'll be spreading these messages on AARTO, our systems, our communication systems are designed in such a way that we enable infringers, we enable operators to transact on our online platforms. It's one thing to really post the message, but our system should enable you to get online, transact, resolve your traffic fines, so that at the end of the day, you are able to do everything right on the spot. We also seek to ensure that it's also transparent and expeditious adjudication processes. We'll make sure that because the other critical point, colleagues, in as far as AARTO is concerned, I'm going to come into that in the AARTO elective options, are the timelines that are associated with the process, because the minute you fail to honor a particular timeline, it means you forfeit some of the benefits that are brought about by the AARTO process. For example, if the system requires you to pay within 32 days, 50% discount, and you don't pay within that 32 days, it means you forfeit that. If the system allows you to submit representation with the relevant evidence, and then you fail to do that, it means you forfeit that particular option. If the system allows you to pay in installments, and perhaps you don't do the necessary application or required documentation, and then it means you forfeit that. If the system requires you to, within 32 days to respond, or within 64 days to make sure that you submit particular documents, you get to forfeit those particular benefits. It's so important in terms of the compliance chain that we pay attention to those timelines that are highlighted by the legislation itself. And then the points demerit system is also coming in. We should also indicate, colleagues, that the points demerit system, as you can see even in this presentation, the points demerit system does not come in immediately when you get issued with a traffic infringement on the roadside. The points demerit system comes in quite late, after we have been exposed or failed to take advantage of the other benefits that are presented by the system. Hence, we always highlight the fact that in as much as the AARTO process is presented and attached to it quite very strongly, the points demerit system, there are many other benefits that come in way before the introduction or the implementation of the points demerit system in the system. It's the PDS, it comes in as some sort of a last resort when we have really failed to take advantage of these other benefits. Mr. Ngobo is going to really expand on this point. The rehabilitation program, I've touched briefly on that, colleagues, to say when an infringer, if your employee has committed or the driving license has been taken away, that should really not be the end of employment for that particular person. That person should also be exposed to the rehabilitation program to make sure that that person is brought back into the road, because we wouldn't want to see people with driving licenses sitting on the sidelines being unemployed. We continue to have an obligation. The RTIA is going to make sure that the rehabilitation program is in place, so that you don't find a situation where people say the system is designed to take away jobs from South Africans. And again, these are some of the intentions of the AARTO Act to encourage voluntary compliance to traffic laws. It also comes with the automatic 50% discount on payment made within 32 days. It also simplifies the adjudication of traffic contraventions. It also establishes procedures for effective and expeditious adjudication of road traffic infringements. It also encourages payments of penalties. It also seeks to alleviate the burden on courts to deal with criminal offenses. I think I've touched briefly on some of these areas, colleagues, because at the end of the day, the dent that AARTO is going to make is not something that is going to come from outside of the road user. It should be something that comes from within. Hence, we always emphasize the point on the voluntary compliance to traffic laws by most of our road users. The 50% discount, we have touched on it within 32 days. Because if your driver has committed an infringement, be it within Tshwane or within Joburg, if that person is able to go and advance and resolve that infringement within 32 days. If it was 500, it was 1,000, it was 1,000 rands. 50% gets to be cut off if you go and resolve that through payment within 32 days. And then simplification of the adjudication process of traffic contraventions. So the process is very much simple. We've got forms. My colleagues, Ms. Maya Lippert, is going to indicate in terms of how to complete those forms. It's quite very much simple forms that we need to complete. Establishment of the procedure for effective expeditious application of road traffic offences. The system is simple and straightforward. Also, ourselves as the agency, we've got our own standard operating procedures, which also place an obligation on us to say within a particular time frame, we should be able to revert to whoever has submitted an application, be it an application for representation or nomination of a driver or to pay in installments. We've got an obligation to return within a particular time frame to indicate the outcome of the adjudication process. Encourage payment of penalties. We have touched on that as well. Alleviation of burden of the courts. We have indicated that infringements, only criminal matters, drunken driving, exceeding speed, going beyond 40 kilometers per hour over and above the set speed. Those are criminal offenses that go to the court of law. But anything below that, those matters are handled through the administrative adjudication process. These are the types of infringements. My colleagues are going to touch on some of these areas. Arto 1, this is the infringement that is handed out to the driver on the roadside. You commit an infringement, you exceeding speed, the traffic officer arrives on the roadside and gives you the ticket. Arto 2, this is recorded on the National Contravention Register. This is done through the camera. This one is placed on the vehicle windscreen. You are parked on the wrong spot, then you get back to your vehicle. There's an infringement notice on the windscreen. This one is by registered mail to the registered owner of the vehicle. So this is another type of infringement, which is Arto 3. And then this is a critical part also of this presentation, colleagues. This is the Arto process. It starts from the bottom of this presentation. That is stage 1. That's when the infringer receives an infringement on the roadside, and then you've got all those different options. As the presentation is indicating, the amendment is doing away with the elect to be tried in court, but it still gives you those options. This is what happens in the first 32 days. You pay the penalty and qualify for the 50% discount. You can still submit a representation, which is Arto 8. Ms. Lippert is going to indicate what that Arto 8 is all about. Submission of a representation, it means you are really disputing the infringement. So you have to provide all the necessary evidence to indicate why you want that particular infringement to be cancelled. You can also arrange to pay in installment. Any infringement that exceeds 750 rands, you can make an application to pay those infringements or those fines in installments. You submit Arto 4 forms, nominate a driver, Arto 7 forms. Nomination of a driver is also a critical aspect, especially in this part of a presentation where you've got operators attending, because you've got your fleet of vehicles, you've got your drivers who are on the field as you speak, but the vehicles are registered in your company name. They are registered in the company owner's name. So if the driver commits an infringement on the road and then perhaps goes through a camera, then that ticket is going to come to the owner of the company, is going to come to the owner of the vehicle. Then what does that infringer has got to do? I'm sure all of us are familiar with how the proxies operate. Ms. Maya Lippert is going to indicate how the proxies also work when it comes to Arto 7, because you also have a responsibility to divert that particular ticket to the person who was driving on the road, to say, well, Mr. Mondem Kalipi, you are my employee on this particular road. You were driving on N1, you exceeded speed, and then this is the ticket. This ticket is going to be rerouted to the person who was driving on the road. And then stage 2, the part at the bottom, this is within the first 32 days. And then the failure to respond to those particular concessions that are made under the first 32 days. And then this moves on to the second level. That first part, this happens within the jurisdictions. And then on the second level, now the infringement is handed over to us. This means from JMPD now to the RTIA. The RTIA has got a responsibility to now send what is called the courtesy letter. The courtesy letter is a diplomatic way of a word that says, now we are reminding you of this particular infringement. Within that 32 days, you have to pay the full penalty. The 50% discount gets to be forfeited. You can still submit a representation to challenge. You can still arrange to pay in installments. The election to be tried to court is falling away, as we have already indicated. So it's falling away in terms of the amended legislation. The amended legislation is the one that we said was passed by the president in 2019. It's going to come into effect once the president has proclaimed that legislation. At the moment, the president has not proclaimed a date for its introduction in the entire country. And then after the second 32 days, now we're at 64 days. If, for example, you have not honored any of those concessions, any of those benefits that are afforded to you in the first 32 days, and then now it moves to the next level, which is called the enforcement order stage. Enforcement order stage, it means you are blocked from doing any transactions on the notice. You are unable to renew your driving license. You are unable to renew any of the license discs because you need to resolve those traffic fines. So you can still go and you need now to come and resolve the whole penalties in full. You can still apply for the revocation of the enforcement order. So the options are still open there. But at that time, it becomes very, very difficult because now you are faced with a huge inconvenience. It's difficult for your vehicles to be on the road. You can't renew your driving licenses. That's why you appeal to road users to say, please make sure that as early as stage 1, please attend to these particular matters. And if you are found to have perhaps you admit guilt under stage 4 or any of the stages, it's only then that the points demerit system going to kick in. The points demerit system, it's when you have admitted guilt, and Mr. Ngobo is also going to explain as to what other instances where the points demerit system get to be attached. So it's not like an automatic arrangement that you receive an infringement or your car has received a camera infringement and therefore the points demerit system get to be attached. There is a due process that gets to be followed. And then earlier on, I touched about the differences between infringement and offenses. You'll see what Arto is responding to. If an adult driver has failed to put on a safety belt, that remains an infringement. You operate a vehicle of a prescribed class without a valid provincial driving permit, that is regarded as infringement. On the other side, drunken driving, excessive speeding, driving at a speed greater than 40 kilometers per hour of the set speed limit, reckless and negligent driving, fail to affix both number plates on the vehicle. So those are the offenses. So those ones normally go to court. There is no argument. But what you get under infringement, which is Arto, and we should indicate that offenses are handled under the Criminal Procedure Act. Those are criminal acts. But when it comes to Arto, those that we have on your left-hand side operating a vehicle but fail to fit any lamps or use any lamps with sufficient brilliance visible from 150 meters. So those remain infringements on your vehicles. And then these are mere examples, colleagues, that are highlighted here. These matters are still in the draft regulations. So this information is not approved as yet, but we are just presenting it as examples. In terms of charges, for example, if you are driving without a valid driving license, the amount for that, it's an example, is going to be 1,250 rands. But above all that, once you have admitted guilt, you are going to be slapped with 4 demerit points. Driving under the influences of alcohol or intoxicating substance, penalty amount determined by court. That one goes to court. There is going to be a proposed number of 6 demerit points. Driving at 100 kilometers, 285 kilometers per hour on roads that is set for 60 kilometers per hour, 750 and 2 demerit points. So this is how the system is going to be applied. That's why some people call it double jeopardy or something like that. It means double punishment, in other words. But because of the problems that we encounter on our roads in terms of fatalities, we have to make sure that we have the system, because the application of only the green aspect of a management of infringements on our roads is proving to be a fruitless exercise, because we have someone who's got lots of money who continues to speed on our roads and yet putting lives of other people in danger. That person speeding because he or she knows that got lots of money, I'm going to pay. But when it comes to the introduction of Arto, there's going to be consequences for that. You have to make sure that you get to be taken off the road, or you face all the consequences of having the demerit points being taken away, suspensions happening at the same time. So the points demerit system, Mr. Ngobo is going to come into it. Is not yet activated in the country, but he's going to go into detailing as far as that one is concerned. Mr. Ngobo is going to come into that point. Let me leave it for now and Atema Poloba. And then he's also going to touch on the suspensions, the first suspension, second suspension, and the third suspension. And then I'm sure he's also going to touch on that, especially Ms. Maya Lippert, as to what are the implications when it comes to operators or owners of fleet. Operators can nominate a person in control of a vehicle. Infringements of vehicle roadworthiness will create operator infringement for owner of the vehicle. Okay, my time is almost up now. And then operators will only be held responsible for vehicle-related infringements. Mr. Ngo is also going to touch as to what that aspect means, because if your vehicle is on the road and it has got defects on it, then the infringements are going to be channeled to the owner of the vehicle. And he is also going to indicate as to what are the implications to the driver at that particular point in time. Points incurred by operators will be allocated to operator cards of the vehicles involved in the infringements. Once points threshold is exceeded, operator card is suspended. Mr. Ngobo is also going to also expand when it comes to that. For the convenience of many of the road users, many owners, there is a pool of payment platforms that have been created. They are all pay platforms. There is Spar Checker, ShopRite, USafe, Chain Stores, Massmart companies, your game builders, warehouse, macro. But we should indicate that the critical aspect when you're going to resolve your traffic fines, we should also make sure that you carry the 16-digit infringement number, because that number serves as a reference. It also means that even when the payment comes through the RTIA is able to allocate to the necessary infringement as to where it occurred, when it occurred. So that number, that 16-digit number, is so important. And then the legislation that was passed by the President on the 13th of August 2019, it really meant that those particular aspects of the legislation are going to come into effect. The electronic serving and processing of Arto infringements. Currently, documents are served in two forms now. That is through the postal services as well as personal. That is given the ticket to the person on the roadside. The RTIA now is going to become a national authority. There is going to be the establishment of the points demerit system, the traffic rehabilitation program, as well as the appeals tribunal. The appeals tribunal is the structure that is going to be above the RTIA, so that whatever decision, if an infringer wants to dispute the outcome of our of the verdict of the RTIA, that person can always go to the appeals tribunal. Currently, in terms of the phasing in of Arto colleagues, we have the first phase that was announced by the minister on the 1st of July, which talks to the setting up of the Arto service outlets, as well as ongoing Arto education, countrywide NATIS connectivity, as well as ongoing readiness assessment in all jurisdictions throughout the country. Phase 2, we are busy with that. There is ongoing readiness assessment underway in the 69 jurisdictions that are going to come in during this particular phase, as well as phase 3 that is going to start on the 1st of July 2022 in terms of the rollout in the 144 jurisdictions. And all that we can indicate now, there is ongoing readiness assessment that we are doing in all those jurisdictions. And then phase 4 is going to happen on the first rollout of the points demerit system, as well as the rollout of the rehabilitation program. So, Lizel and Busim, that is where the presentation comes to an end, but we should indicate that we should encourage colleagues to really view our messages in our social media platforms. We've got an Arto mobile app. You can download it from the Google Play Store, Arto mobile app. That is where you can be able to view your Arto infringements. We are going to expand the functionalities to that app so that you are also able to do the transactions in terms of the payments also online. We've got a Twitter handle where you are able to view some of the messages can go in there. You can even navigate even to our website. We've got a very active Instagram account, RTIA hyphen home of Arto, as well as Facebook, which is RTIA hyphen Arto. So these are all the platforms that you can use. But also, more importantly, we've got that website, arto.gov website. This is where you can go and register and have your username as well as your password. You can be able to do all the transactions there, including payments in that particular platform. Ms. Peter Lippert is also going to expand on some of our online platforms as to how can you do those transactions there. We also have our corporate website, artia.co website. You can also be able to view how the agency is structured in terms of our operations. So it's so important that you also register on that website, colleagues, so that we're able to do those transactions on an ongoing basis. So this is where the presentation ends. Thank you so much, Lizel. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make this presentation. Over to you, Lizel and Bus. Thank you.
It is a pleasure, Mondi. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think everybody can agree with me that it has been very informative. Thank you so much. Busi, is Maya able to join us now?
Hi, Lizel. No, she can't join. But whatever that Monde has covered, it is in her presentation, and what Mr. Ngobo will also cover. So we are fine. We can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. Then, due to Ms. Maya Lippert that cannot join us at the moment, we are going to just change the agenda a bit and first proceed to the Q&A section now. I'm just going to share my screen quickly with you. Okay, can everybody see my screen? You can just say yes.
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 Hold on 1 second, let me just...
Yes. 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 Yes.
My apologies, I just want to fix something on my side. I can't see you at the moment. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about this, I will start now. Okay, Mondi, I am going to ask you if you can just join me if there is any questions that you would like to answer from your side. I am just going to tell everybody that we have had quite a lot of questions. We had more than 100 questions. We have removed some of the questions that we believe have been answered during this presentation. So we are only going to focus on some of the questions that have come through now on the chat box, as well as just some of the questions that were handed in during the registration phase. If there is any question that we do not answer during this Q&A section that you still want answered after the webinar, you are more than welcome to, we will be sending out emails to you to contact me directly, and I will, answer your question. And if I need help, assistance from the RTIA, I will get that questions answered for you. Okay, so the first question that we have is, how will the violation notice be delivered to the transgressor within 32 days? Mondi, is that something that you want to answer?
Yes, thank you so much, Lizel. We can respond. I'm sure my colleagues, Ms. Mohale, as well as Mr. Ngobo, are also going to help in responding.
Okay.
Yeah, how will the violation notice be delivered to the transgressor within 32 days? Here, as we have indicated in terms of the presentation, Arto documents are delivered in two forms at the moment. The first way of delivering documents, the notice, is personal. That is, if you committed infringements and you are stopped by a law enforcement officer on the roadside, and then the 32 days start counting from that day, you receive the notice. And then if you go and pay that infringement within 32 days, and then it means you are getting that 50% discount. So that is the first. And then when it comes to the second way of delivering documents, which is postal, documents are delivered through registered mail. Registered mail, it means that you at home, you're going to receive an indication that you've got mail at the post office. You go and collect it. So the 32 days from the day in which you sign, you confirm receipt of the infringement notice. That's when the day one starts, in as far as there's 32 days is concerned. So that is how it is going to apply. The same applies even when documents are delivered to you electronically. The minute the system indicates that a document was delivered to Mondem Kalipi and Mondem Kalipi, there is confirmation on the notice that this document did arrive at the email box of Mr. Mkalipi, and then he indeed opened it, and then the 32 days, the day one begins to count in as far as that those 32 days are concerned. So this is how it is going to work in as far as the first 32 days are concerned. So documents are going to be delivered on those three ways: personal, postal, as well as through electronic mail. So that's how it is going to work, Lizelle. I'm sure Mr. Ngobo will also be able to make additions, Lizelle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mondi. Okay, our next question that we have is the activation date and handling of the offences that lapsed but remain on the register. So I think the activation date for Arto is already starting to be implemented, and the activation date for the Demerit system we know has been covered. That is on the 1st of July next year. The offences that have lapsed but remain on the register, what is going to happen with those, Mondi or Kwazi?
Can I come in?
Yes, Kwazi.
Yes, please.
Yes, I need clarification as far as this question is concerned, so that I'm sure that I understand it. If the person who's asking a question saying offences that have lapsed, I'm a bit confused. That what is the meaning of lapsed? How have they lapsed?
Yes, I'm unsure what the person is actually meaning. I think if they might have expired, I think that there's a lot of fines that have expired, or they're older than a certain times. If they're older than 18 months or longer than a year, older than that, will those remain on the register, or will those be withdrawn?
Oh, yes. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Lizelle. Currently, we have Arto being implemented in municipal areas of Johannesburg and Pretoria. But other cities like Durban, Cape Town, and other provinces, Arto is not implemented there. We have the Criminal Procedure Act. There you have traffic fines being issued in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act. And then when we switch to Arto, you will have a situation whereby those fines that were in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act will continue and be dealt with in terms of that act up until they are finalized. whereby people will still have to go to the prosecutors in court and do things according to the Criminal Procedure Act. But when AARTO comes in, let's say maybe 1st of March or whatever date that the president will proclaim, all the citations that should be issued then, they should be in terms of the AARTO Act, and then people will have to follow the AARTO processes. So the introduction of AARTO does not nullify the pending matters from the Criminal Procedure Act. I'm not sure if I have covered the question.
Yes, I think so, definitely, Kwazi. Thank you so much. Okay, the next question is, can fines be reissued to the individual driver, and how much time will be allowed? Now, I know that a fine will be able to be reissued. Can you perhaps just give an indication of within how much the time period of when a fine can be reissued?
Okay, can I come in again?
Yes.
We have a process which is called a nomination process. Monde did talk about the different types of infringement notices. You have those infringement notices that are called Arto 03, where they will be sent by post or maybe by electronic services. It's mainly camera fines, and some of those, they are also parking fines. So what will happen there, as soon as that infringement is served, there will be a process whereby the owner will have to complete a prescribed form, which is called Arto 07 form. This is a nomination of a driver form. But this nomination process, this can only be done while the process is still on the infringement notice phase. You'll remember that Monde did go through the process of infringement, courtesy letter, and enforcement order, and all the other options that are available. So as soon as that infringement notice or Arto 03 fine is served, maybe via post or via electronic service, the owner or the proxy, in a case of a heuristic person, will have to make sure that they keep proper record who was driving a vehicle, when, and at what time, and also have a copy of identity documents for that person, because some IAs, like Johannesburg Metropolis Department, if one is nominating using an Arto 07 form, they also need a copy of that driver. So that can be done within the first 32 days from the service of a document. But there's also another quicker way for nominating when it comes to fleet management companies, whereby they can be able to register and have some sort of a link to NATIS, whereby they can be able to view the fines that are outstanding for their company and be able to nominate electronically. So, but that needs a process of registration with the RTIA, and also it must be done within that 32 days as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwazi. Yeah, I've seen your online system and I've tested it out. It is absolutely a fantastic system. Definitely worthwhile for any company to go and register. Then define the do's and don'ts when applying to renew your driver's license. What delays to expect and the effect outstanding fines will have on it. I think that, this basically covers or is relating to when you have a suspended or a cancelled license, what are the things that is going to affect you in renewing your driver's license, and what kind of delays can you expect? I think this question will actually be answered by Kwazi when he goes through the demerit system and how the suspension of the license is going to work and how long your license is going to be suspended for and how that's going to affect the renewal of your license. Am I correct in saying that, Kwazi?
Yes, but I can also answer it now because Mondes also he did speak about enforcement order.
Yes.
You have a document, an enforcement order. This document, once it's served or issued, it blocks your license, whether it's a driving license or it's a vehicle license. So there can be delays whereby if you go to a licensing office and you have not checked it, maybe via our website, if do you have outstanding infringements or not, you can wait in the queue and then they tell you that, hey, sorry, Stefan Nicker, we have outstanding enforcement orders. So you won't be able to get your driving license. You have to pay or apply for revocation of an enforcement order. So my tip will be before you go to the licensing office, better visit our AARTO website. I think it's still arto.gov.za. There person, then you can have access to all the outstanding matters on your name. Then depending on the status of the document, whether it's escalation or an enforcement order, it's better to first make sure that you exercise all the elective options that you need to exercise to deal with outstanding matters, especially when those matters are on enforcement order phase, whereby your license will be blocked. You deal with all enforcement orders, then you can visit the licensing office, because you can end up having a trip whereby you go, then you have to go back and sort out the enforcement order. Better check before you visit the licensing office. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwazi. Okay, the next question is the merit point checks on drivers. And I know that this came from a corporate company. They wanted to know, will there be any costs involved for them as a company to monitor their driver's points if their driver has provided with them permission to monitor their points?
Yes, the Act provides for a fee, that there must be a fee that must be paid to access this information. So there will be cost involved, but I cannot say how much right now, because you know that there are regulations that were published for comments, and those regulations, they are not yet approved by the minister. But when they were published for comments, the cost was 60 Rand per request. That was the proposed cost when these regulations were published for comments.
Okay. And Kwazi, can you just confirm, will that be a cost for an individual driver when he goes and requests his own demerit points, as well as for companies?
Yeah. That is a cost for an individual driver. But RTIA is also looking at an option, because, you know, if you look at fleet management companies,
Yes.
Really, there is a need for an automated way to have access to these points. So RTIA is also looking at that, and it might need maybe a legislation amendment, but it's also other ways that RTIA is still looking at, whereby maybe the companies can have a certain time to access the system for a certain period to check their employees' statuses. It will also come at a fee if it comes, and that access will also require consent from the employees or for the company to check their demerit points and demerit history and status. But for now, I can confirm that all of those, they will come with a fee.
Okay, thank you, Kwazi. Then the next question, how and when will the company be updated on the status of each vehicle? I think I'm going to answer this one just to say that, the company will not be informed of the status of the vehicle. It will be up to the company to monitor the points and the statuses of your vehicles as well as your drivers. I don't think the RTIA is going to inform you of when your vehicle is suspended. It will be up to you. I'm not sure. Can you just confirm if I'm correct in saying that, Kwazi?
The users will be informed.
Okay.
They will be informed when you receive your infringement notice, whether it's an Arto 01 or 02 or 03. That infringement notice will come stating that this is the charge and here are the demerit points related to that particular charge. Okay. And then what will happen when you are going to be suspended or you have your license cancelled, there will be a notification that will be sent to that particular person. But I will go deeper on that one when I'm doing the presentation on the points demerit system. But there will be notification.
Okay.
But still, it's always better to maybe once in a week or two, you visit the website, you check your status, then you know that you don't have surprises.
Yes, no, it's better. I believe it's better to monitor the points and make sure you can monitor how far you are. Okay, the next question is how and when to start implementing this as a policy within the company. I would recommend personally that you start that process now while Arto is being implemented over the next year, still until next year, that you start implementing the policy within your company now, get your processes and your procedures, everything in place, so that when the demerit point system comes into effect, that your company is ready and not ready to deal with it. If you wait until it is being implemented or the demerit point system becomes active, then you are going to sit with a problem where you might get demerit points, you might not have your processes in order. And for companies with large fleets, within a couple of days, you can quickly have a lot of fines that if you do not nominate them within the correct time period or, do what the processes that you have or that the options that you have available, you might not be able to do that within the correct time periods and some of the options might fall away. So we would definitely recommend from Upskill Academy side, and I think Kwazi and Mondi and everybody will agree with me, to start implementing it as a policy and have those discussions now, implement it and get your processes ready now before the demerit point system comes into effect. Do your training, train your drivers. That is going to be very important to do that now before the system comes into effect. Okay, the next question is, what happens if a company submits the nomination, but the infringement is not nominated successfully prior to the escalation into a courtesy letter? Kwazi, is there something, will a company then still be, will the demerit points then still go to the proxy? If the nomination wasn't successfully, if they maybe thought they submitted it, but the RTIA never received it, what will the process then be?
Yes. What will happen here is very important to have a proof of submission of any document. Because when it has escalated to the next level, you're always required, if you say, no, I nominated on time, and now I have an enforcement order, you are always required to provide a proof of submission. So if you are doing a walk-in and you are submitting maybe at one of the JMPD offices or whatever, a Cape Town licensing office, where whatever manner of submission, whether it's via email, don't delete that email, you keep it. So that when that happens, and you are told that you are already on courtesy letter, you cannot nominate. If you provide a proof, then you'll be offered an opportunity to nominate. A proof is very important. So proper record keeping of all the actions as far as your elective options are concerned is very important. Even if it's nomination or representation or payment, but the record keeping is very important.
Okay, thank you, Kwazi. I think we're gonna go to one more question before we go to our break time, and then after the break, we'll first have Kwazi do his presentation, and then if we have time left, we can go on to some other questions. Okay, how does a company reduce the risk against the company and assigned proxy and ensure the drivers are liable for their infringements? I think it is very important. I'm just going to answer this, and Kwazi, you can jump in if you want to afterwards. To reduce the risk against your company, against your proxy, for your drivers, training and education is definitely going to play a huge part in that. You need to make sure that your administration staff that deals with your traffic fines know exactly how the AARTO adjudication process works, what options is available on certain levels, how they can monitor the fines, how they can monitor their points. All of that is very important for your administration staff to learn, and you can, do that through educating them efficiently. Then you will also need to educate your drivers. If you can implement your policies and procedures, but if you don't train your drivers in those policies and procedures and have them understand the actual consequences of the act for them as a driver, if they do not adhere to the rules of the road, that they can possibly, lose their jobs, or, if they do have a suspended license or a cancelled license, that you need. Education will play a big part in reducing the risk against the company, against your proxy, and also against the drivers. That I would say is the biggest thing that you can do to reduce your risk. And then also to make sure that you have your policies and procedures in place, that you know what you are going to implement it, and then again make sure that it's in place, you've got your monitoring systems in place, your nomination systems in place, and that everybody knows what is expected of them. If you fail to do that, you will have a risk to your proxy, you will have a risk to your drivers, and you will have risk to your vehicles and your insurance. A driver is not, if they know that they can lose their job, they're not going to publicly, inform you that they have a suspended license. So it is very important that you train your drivers, you have your systems in place and your policies and procedures. Kwazi, is there anything that you would like to add on this question before we go to the break?
Yes. Thank you, Lisa. What I would like to add is that if the infringement notice is issued to a company, the demerit points will never go to the name of the proxy. So the proxy must not be afraid that they will end up losing licenses due to the infringement notices that are belonging to the company. That will never happen. If the infringement is not dealt with, is the company or the vehicle that was used to commit infringement notices that will incur demerit points, not the proxy. But it's always good for the proxy to keep the record, who's driving a vehicle, at what time, nominate accordingly, timelessly, so that the company does not incur demerit points, especially for driver-related infringements such as speeding or the infringements that are related to fitness of the driver. And again, I will emphasize record keeping is very important. ensure that the vehicles are roadworthy to avoid a lot of operator-related type of infringements. Thank you.
Thanks, Kwazi. Okay, thank you, everybody. We are going to take a quick break, just a 15-minute break, and then we will be back and Kwazi will do his presentation. After that presentation, we will continue with questions and answers. I see that there has been a couple of questions that was asked in the chat box. I will add them to the list. I cannot promise that we will get through all the questions today, but we will try our best. Questions that we don't get to, we will obviously answer at the end of the session via email to all the registrants and the attendees. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to play a video for you while we take a break. Please do not leave the session. Just stay logged in, and we'll see you shortly.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Arto and the Demerit System What's Next webinar. Your host for this webinar is Liesel Erasmus, and she is the Creative and Content Director of Upskill Academy. We want to thank our esteemed panel from the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA, for joining us today. We are all looking forward to their presentations and the information they will be sharing with us today. Before I hand it over to Liesel, to introduce the panel, we would like to take a short moment of your time to introduce you to Upskill Academy. Upskill Academy is the creators of simplified courses for sometimes complicated yet current, relevant, and mostly required learning for compliance with various laws. The aim is to quickly, easily, and affordably upskill your workforce with the relevant information required for compliance with regulatory matters that may have far-reaching and negative effects on your business. The internet is your classroom. Study anytime, anywhere on any smart device. Train, verify, certify in 3 easy steps. So why did we decide to develop a course in Arto? It was a no-brainer. Altogether, our team has a total of 13 years of experience in traffic fine management. With this knowledge and the knowledge our team has in understanding the Arto Act and how it will positively affect the management of traffic fines nationally for companies, we decided to develop an e-learning course. Arto and the new Demerit point system is not all doom and gloom. Yes, if you do not update your policies, train your administration staff and drivers, and implement the correct procedures and point monitoring systems, then Arto will affect you negatively. You are probably thinking, what can be positive about Arto? Let us look at a few positives. You will be able to access your traffic fines nationally on one system. No more contacting various municipalities or going to various traffic departments to obtain a list of fines. Applying to have a fine reduced on behalf of a driver will also fall away due to the 50% automatic discount. Another positive is that you will be able to submit your elective options electronically, so less paperwork and no more standing in queues at courts. The biggest positive is that your drivers will be more responsible if you upskill them effectively in what the consequences will be for non-compliance. One of the questions most asked by some of the registrants for this webinar is, what are the risks for our company if we do not comply with Arto? We are quickly going to look at some of the potential risks for your proxy, drivers, vehicles, and your insurance when it comes to Arto and the Demerit point system. Let us start by looking at the risk to the company's proxy. The good news is that if you implement sufficient administrative processes and educate your traffic fine administrators efficiently, there is no risk to your proxy. But this is all dependent on following due process. Meet Bob. Bob is your average working employee that agreed to become a proxy when asked by his boss. Bob was informed what it means, but did not understand the risks. Bob is the proxy for a corporate company called FexCorp. The company did not implement Arto efficiently and did not upskill the person that deals with their traffic fines. This means that fines were not nominated to the responsible drivers, and therefore the demerit points were added to Bob's driver's license. Bob now takes the train to work, as his license is suspended. FexCorp is trying its best to implement the systems, but due to their lack of knowledge, Bob keeps on receiving more demerit points, and ultimately his license will get cancelled after the third suspension. So, what are the risks to your drivers? If you implement Arto correctly within your company and upskill your traffic fine administrators, then all fines will be nominated to the responsible driver and demerit points allocated to the driver's license. Ultimately, your drivers can get their licenses suspended or cancelled after a third suspension. This in turn will mean a loss of job and loss of income. The other risk to the company when it comes to drivers is that if you do not have your policies and procedures in place, and you did not upskill your driver, you might not be able to take any steps against the driver. Internal memos and notices around the office might not be seen as sufficient training. A trained driver will most definitely be more careful and will be more likely to adhere to the road traffic laws of South Africa. Did you know that the vehicles in your fleet can also receive demerit points? Your vehicles can therefore also receive a suspended license and cancelled license after a third suspension. This means that you will have to implement a system to monitor the points of your vehicles. You will also need to upskill anyone responsible for ensuring that your vehicles are licensed and roadworthy. If your fleet cannot operate at full capacity, it will affect your revenue, delivery of service to your clients, and this will negatively affect your brand. Lastly, we are going to look at the risk to your insurance. If your company does not implement an Arto policy and procedure and a system to monitor demerits, you might not be aware that a driver is using a vehicle with a suspended or cancelled license. Now, if that driver has an accident with a suspended or cancelled license, your insurance company will not pay out the claim. You will also not be able to hold the driver responsible for any damages if the driver was not provided sufficient training in Arto and the consequences of non-compliance. Upskill Academy offers 2 e-learning courses. The first course, Understanding Arto, is for HR, managers, and administrators. The course contains 6 modules and covers the whole act from when points are allocated, when drivers' licenses are suspended, to demerit points, how to make Arto a core business focus, and the consequences of non-compliance. The course also includes a downloadable Arto policies and procedure document template, which can use as a starting point and adjust to your own company. The second Understanding Arto driver training course was specifically designed as a tool for companies to upskill their drivers. This course contains 6 modules covering everything from the demerit point system, consequences of demerit points, how to use the online system, and more. The newest module of this course covers what your company's Arto policy and procedure might look like and ensures the driver understands the consequences of not complying. Our training is a perfect solution with minimal disturbance yet maximum impact. Both courses are quick to complete, packed with all the needed information with graded questionnaires and a certificate of completion as proof of training and compliance. The courses are also available in 3 languages: English, Xhosa, and Zulu. Welcome to the Understanding Arto course.
Wamkelekile kwinkqubo ukuqonda umthetho i-Arto Act. Siyakwamkela esifundeni sokuqonda i-Arto.
Companies are fully embracing e-learning and online learning platforms due to their simplicity of use. We offer the ability to monitor student performance and progress and offer completion of compliance certificates. Cost-effectively mitigate risk for your company. So, how does it work? Step 1 is to select a course. Once you decided on a course, click on Enroll and follow the checkout process. Access tokens are available for bulk purchases. Just contact us for details. Step 2 is to log into your profile and get started. All courses consist of modules with videos followed by short questionnaires. The system automatically saves your progress, so you can do the course over time. The system also has course compliance controls that require video completion to move on from one module to another. As soon as you've completed all the modules and passed the graded questionnaires, you will receive a certificate of completion. All certifications will remain on the Upskill Academy platform for future access if required. Train, verify, certify, in 3 easy steps. Our clients say it best. Here are just a few testimonials. If you are interested in any of our Arto courses, please feel free to contact us after the webinar. Before we proceed with the second half of the webinar, please take note again of the following disclaimer. This is a free webinar and no attendee has paid or will be asked to pay to join this session. The webinar will be hosted by Upskill Academy in conjunction with the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, also known as the RTIA. This forms part of the Arto national rollout program of the RTIA to create awareness.
Hi everybody, welcome back. Is everybody still with us? It looks like it. Kwazi, I'm going to hand over to you if you want to start your section of the presentation. I just want to make a note that some people in chat did ask us for our website. Please take note that our website is www.upskillacademy.co. It's only .co and not .co.za or .com. It's only .co. Okay, but I will send the link through after the session as well. Kwazi, are you ready to start?
Yes. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I'm ready to start. Good afternoon again, everyone. My presentation will be focusing on the points demerit system. I am trying to change this to the presentation mode here. But technology is not my friend. Seems like something's happening.
You could just
All right.
There you go. Thanks, Kwazi.
All right. I will do the points demerit system presentation. As stated by the colleagues earlier, this system, the points demerit system, is not yet activated. It will be activated at a later stage when the president proclaims and say, now the points demerit system will be implemented in this particular date. Then it will be activated. But like Lizelle and Bondo were saying, it's very important to be proactive when it comes to this system. Start preparing now. Make sure that when it comes, you are ready and your policies and your procedures, they are geared to the new way of dealing with the infringement notices and all the consequences that can come for your companies and even for yourself in a personal level. So my presentation, it will touch on the introduction of the points demerit system, the implications of this point demerit system, also known as PDS. How are the points calculated? To whom is the system applicable to? How are the points incurred? How are they reduced? The disqualification period, the cancellation of documents, operator implications and heuristic persons implications. Then general matters, then we'll go to a Q&A. The points demerit system is part of a wider traffic law sanctioning system. The PDS assigns demerit points to drivers or owners of the vehicle when committed traffic violations. If after a certain period of time, a specific limit is exceeded or a threshold, there will be prohibition from driving that will be imposed over and above the regular monetary sanctions that comes with an infringement notice. So the aim of the point demerit system is to deter drivers and prevent them from offending or re-offending or infringing. So the main aim is to prevent people from committing traffic violations. But those who repeatedly commit traffic violations, whether it's offense or infringements, this PDS or the point demerit system will result in a temporary ban from driving. We are saying it's a temporary ban because even if your document is cancelled, when we are back at certain points, you'll be allowed to apply for a new license. So in terms of the AARTO Act, there is nowhere where it states that you will be banned forever. No, it's a temporary ban, but I'll go to details as far as that is concerned later in this presentation. So what are the implications here? It will make it easier to identify habitual drivers or habitual offenders and infringers, because these points, they will tell you that, okay, this one is not a good driver, this one is on tools, maybe it's not bad, but you will also be able to find out maybe if your employees' points have exceeded the threshold or it is suspended or cancelled. So it will make it easier for companies and everyone who has interest, but obviously with their consent from the other person. You cannot just access people's demerit points without their consent, especially now that we also have even the OPIA, the POPI Act. So it's very important that we emphasize that access to demerit points will be with the employee's consent. It is anticipated that this system will increase compliance with road traffic laws, which will lead to safer roads and improve behavior. And then eventually there will be a reduction of road crashes, deaths, and serious injuries. And those who repeatedly commit violations or habitual infringers can end up having their licenses suspended and even cancelled. So how are these points calculated? The points are incurred, meaning that we all start at 0 points when this system is implemented. If the president says, okay, 1st of July is the implementation date, then 1st of July we'll all start at 0 points. Then the points are based on the level of traffic violations or the seriousness of a traffic violation that will be committed. Maybe you will have a situation whereby you have the drunken driving, which is an offense, might carry 6 points. Then you can have maybe an infringement notice for crossing a red traffic light. Maybe it might carry 4 demerit points. Maybe you can have a situation whereby for driving without wearing a seatbelt, maybe 3 demerit points. So depending on the seriousness of the violations, the more serious the violations, the more points will be allocated. Points will be added to the record of the person, and points will be reduced or diminished over time at 1 point every 3 months. So if you have maybe you were caught driving without wearing a seatbelt, and let's say the fine is 500 Rand, make a payment, the points are allocated. All those points are allocated. After 3 months, there will be 1 point reduced from the 3 points that you receive. So this is what Monde was saying when he was saying it's like some sort of a reward for good behavior, that after 3 months, if your behavior is good, you will have points being reduced up until you can have a situation when we are back to 0. But there's another way of having your points being reduced. You can also attend and complete successfully a rehabilitation program. A rehabilitation program it can be something which is similar to a refresher program for drivers, whereby maybe you can attend this program maybe for a week or so. after completion of this program or successfully completing the program, meaning that there will be a test that you have to successfully complete. Then you will have 4 demerit points being decreased after that week, rather than waiting for months and months to have those points being reduced. So here you have a program whereby if maybe your driver happens to have exceeded the threshold by 17 points or whatever, and that person is suspended maybe for 6 months, instead of waiting for that 6 months, that person can attend the rehabilitation program for a week and have 4 demerit points being decreased, and you can go back to work. But this can only happen only once a year, so that you don't have a situation whereby this rehabilitation program is abused by the users. And to whom is this system applicable to? All persons will accumulate demerit points if committed traffic violations. There's no discrimination against anyone. We are all the same in the eyes of this points demerit system. So the points will be recorded against the record of the person. I did mention that the demerit points are allocated to learner drivers as well, persons without licenses, as well as foreigners. These people will have demerit points allocated against their names. Let's say maybe if I can make an example of a learner driver, does not have a driving license, accumulates demerit points, but that person, as soon as that person exceeds the threshold of 15 points, that person will not be allowed to drive. Whether he or she is accompanied by a licensed driver, is suspended, not allowed to drive up until he's back on 15 or even below. Foreigners as well. Demerit points will be allocated to foreigners, and once they exceed 15 points, they will be prohibited from driving. But the challenge with foreigners is that these licenses that they are using, they are not South African licenses, it's licenses that come from their home countries. So we don't have powers to suspend those licenses. But as soon as they are introduced on notice, we can be able to track the number of points that have been accumulated by these foreign drivers. When they exceed the 15 points threshold, then they will not be allowed to drive up until they are back to 15 or even lesser. So that is the situation that we are having, but everyone will have demerit points being allocated against their name if they've committed traffic violation. And I must state that it's not all traffic violations that will carry demerit points. It will be those infringements and offenses that contribute a lot towards fatalities on our roads. So it's not all the points that it's not all the violations that will carry points. If the license has been cancelled, even if you have your license cancelled, the points will be added, because remember, they are added against a person. And the Act does not provide for any time where there will be non-allocation of points if an infringement with points or an offense with points is committed. If disqualified in driving again, the person will be charged and the points will be allocated accordingly. In carrying of points, like I said, it's not all the infringements that have points, it's only those serious ones. And we have what is called Schedule 3, which is part of the Arto regulations. This Schedule 3 is like a charge book with all the offenses stemming from the National Road Traffic Act, the Cross-Border Act, as well as the National Land Transport Act. We have all the offenses coming from those pieces of legislation, as well as the bylaws forming this part of Schedule 3. So it's like a charge book with all the offenses. And there, the demerit points will be allocated according to the seriousness of the violation that will be committed. And when are these points incurred? When someone makes a payment, points will be allocated. So with points demerit system, it does not mean that when you pay, you are scot-free. No. When you make a payment, that is an admission of guilt, and the points demerit system will be allocated. Monday did touch on this, that point demerit system is like some sort of an equalizer between the poor and the rich, whereby in the current system of the Criminal Procedure Act, you will have people with a lot of money just paying and continue to commit violation without any additional consequences. But the PDS is saying, even if you can afford to pay for all the traffic violations that you recklessly commit, at the end of the day, if you are a habitual infringer and you're still paying, you will have points allocated and you can have your driving license being suspended. That is the way of having your points being allocated, payment. And if you apply for installment arrangement with the RTIA and the RTIA accept that application, also an admission of guilt, that one, then points will be incurred. When an enforcement order is issued, if you ignore your traffic fine and there's a courtesy letter, the enforcement order, once an enforcement order is issued, the demerit points will be allocated. Found guilty in court, maybe for drunken driving or for excessive speeding, once you are guilty, then the points will be added. The points will be added on the actual date of payment, not the date of infringement. Date of payment, the date of acceptance of installments, the date when you were found guilty in court, and the date where the RTIA authorized an enforcement order. But in a case of 2 or more traffic violations and under the same set of circumstances, points will be allocated for a violation with highest points value. If I can just make an example, let's say you are driving while drunk. There's a drunken driving, and you cross a red traffic light, and then the traffic officer stops you and finds that you are not wearing your seatbelt. All right? You have committed 3 traffic violations under the same set of circumstances. One is the one of it's an offense of drunken driving, which carries 6 points. Another one, it's an infringement of crossing a red traffic light, carries 4 points. And the third one, it's another infringement of not wearing a seatbelt with 3 points. If you add all of those, you will end up, if you just add 6 plus 4 plus 3, then we have 13 points. But the Act is saying, no, this is not the way it's going to happen. If you commit all these traffic violations under the same set of circumstances, only the 6 points will be applicable to you, because that is the violation with the highest point value. And obviously, if you are found guilty in court for drunken driving. So the others, you will still pay for them, but the points will not be allocated, only the one with the highest point value. If the court decision has been appealed, the points will be kept in suspense pending the finalization of the appeal. Reduction of demerit points, 1 point every 3 months will be reduced in terms of Section 28 of the AARTO Act. The points will be reduced without suspending this diminution process, meaning that even if you commit violation and you don't commit violation, but 1 point every 6 months will be reduced. So that's how the points will be reduced, and also through the rehabilitation program. I did speak to this part earlier. Disqualification period. 1 point is 3 months. Same with disqualification. You have a situation whereby you have a threshold of 15 points. Okay, 1 point over 15 amounts to a 3 months suspension. 2 points over 15, that is 17 points, will amount to 6 month suspension. This suspension it will start 32 days after the date on which the notification of suspension was served or presumed served. In terms of Section 20 of the Arto Act, a document can be served or presumed served. There's a difference here. When it's served, it's when, for example, let's say it's a registered mail, you are notified that Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Vela Sabelo, you can go and there's a registered mail waiting for you at the post office. When you go there, you sign for the document. That document is served. You take it home, it's served. But there's also the presumption of this service. If the document is sent to Vela Sabelo ignores this notification that he must go and collect this document. After 10 days from the postage of that document, and Vela Sabelo does not collect the document will be presumed served. So meaning that if you ignore documents, it does not mean that nothing will happen to you. If you ignore, it will be presumed served. Documents will be sent to the last known address, the address that you give to the licensing department when you are renewing your vehicles, or the email that you will provide to those authorities. When the points are back at 15 or lower, then the suspension or the disqualification period will end. The infringer must be notified in a prescribed manner in terms of Section 26 of the Arto Act. There must be a notification. If there's an enforcement order and you apply for revocation of this enforcement order, and the RTI decided, yes, your application is successful, the enforcement order is revoked, and that enforcement order maybe was the cause for you to exceed the threshold of 15. If successful, then that action is reversed. Then the disqualification period ends. As far as that, the disqualification will also be reversed. And when it comes to cancellation, if disqualified 3 times, you have exceeded the threshold 3 times, all documents are cancelled. Again, 32 days after the date on which the notification of cancellation was served or presumed served. Why 32 days after that date? Because you must have an opportunity to exercise the elective option. Let's say you receive a notification of cancellation. It will tell you that 32 days from the date of service or presumption of service of this document, then your license will be cancelled. And then there will be options there. Maybe you will check and say, but yay, seems like it's this enforcement order, but it's not my vehicle on the photo there, or maybe I was not aware SAPO failed to serve this document to me. I was never notified. Then you can have an opportunity to challenge or to apply for revocation of an enforcement order before the cancellation period or before the cancellation of the document. So that's why we have that 32 days. But if the license is cancelled, the disqualification period is 3 months for every point above 15, meaning that cancellation does not mean that you start automatically, you go back to zero. No. We have a document cancelled, but the way that the points will be reduced, still they are in line with Section 28. They will only be reduced if it's after 3 months or you attend a rehabilitation program. Once you are back at 15, only then you can be allowed to apply for a new learner's license. So the points are against the person's record again. But if there's an enforcement order that is revoked, the relevant actions are reversed, including the cancellation of the document. Operator and the heuristic person implications. Fleet companies, heuristic persons, operators can nominate person in control. Very important to know who was driving which vehicle at what time, so that when you get speeding fines or speeding infringement notice or others via maybe postage or electronic service in future, you must be able to nominate the driver. Can only nominate for violations pertaining to the fitness of the driver, such as parking, speeding, all those violations that are related to the fitness of the driver. But if it's a violation that is about the fitness of the vehicle, the company is held liable. You will have a situation that you have your driver, let's call him Sbusi. Sbusi is driving a vehicle with smooth tires, stopped by a traffic officer. They issue an Arto 1, a handwritten infringement notice on the side of the road for smooth tires. That infringement, it's Busiso's infringement, is liable for that one. But as soon as this traffic officer goes back to the office and they capture this infringement notice, there will be another operator infringement going to the company now, saying that your vehicle was operated on this date with smooth tires. So both the employer and the employee, they are fine. So that's to discourage employers forcing employees to drive vehicles that are not roadworthy. So you will have that situation, and there can be demerit points allocated to that vehicle, as well as Busiso that was drive, because also his responsibility to check if the vehicle is roadworthy before he drives it. So those are operator infringement for the owner of the vehicle, and the operators and as well as heuristic person will be held responsible for vehicle-related infringements. Points will be incurred, will be allocated to vehicles. Vehicles also have a threshold of 15. Once the threshold is exceeded, again, that vehicle will not be allowed to operate for a period of 3 months if it 1 point above 15. Only that vehicle, not the whole fleet, only that vehicle. So it's very important that you, as fleet managers and the people who are responsible for looking after your company's vehicles and proxies and representatives, ensure that the vehicle is licensed, the vehicle is roadworthy, you know who's driving, keep your paperwork, exercise all the elective options on time, then you won't have a lot of problems as far as this system is concerned. Once the point is exceeded, the threshold is exceeded, vehicles will be suspended from operating. What we must also emphasize here is that motorists must always keep their records updated. Suspended licenses and operator card will have an impact on the operations of the organization. So now, let's say we have a driver and this driver cannot drive. See now, end up paying someone for the job that he's not doing. So you must think around that. Look at your policies. What can you do? Look at the other options that are available as far as the rehabilitation program is concerned. Can the company assist the person to go for a rehabilitation program? If the company is paid for that rehabilitation program, how are you as the person going to pay back? What are the labor implications that comes with this PDS? If someone maybe is fired for not being able to drive after suspended or cancelled, work around those issues, to talk about them, have policies around those issues. I cannot advise, but just think, engage with your labor relations specialist and HR people regarding that. Also, payment of fines on behalf of drivers. Remember that payment is admission of guilt, and if you pay, demerit points will be allocated. So before you pay for your driver or your friend or your wife or your spouse or your partner or your brother, make sure that you pay with that person's consent. Because you can think that you are helping this person and you are paying for him or her, and is on 15. Then you pay maybe for a speeding fine with 3 demerit points. Then this person is suspended from driving for the next 9 months. So it's better to pay with the other person's consent, because maybe you don't know, maybe he was going to challenge the fine. So that is very important. Even the permission to access demerit status must be with the it must be sought with the employee. You cannot just access people's demerit status without their consent, especially now, because that is personal information. So since we have also have POPI or POPIA, so it's very important that we do things accordingly. Accurate record keeping management system, very important. Find a way of having a system to ensure that your records are kept in an accurate manner. There's a lot of role players. Monday did touch on role players. I'm not going to spend more time on this one. Monday did touch on the role players within this AARTO system. And that is the points demerit system, Chapter 4 of the AARTO Act in a nutshell. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwazi. I really appreciate it that you shared that with us, and I think you also gave us very informative information. I am going to go back to our question section because we still have quite a number of questions that people have asked now while you were presenting and before the time. Let me just make it big. Okay, the first question I have is, will the AARTO personnel be able to deal with the load of admin? Kwazi Mondi, will you be able to answer that? Or Busi, if you're available?
Lizelle, it seems like you are muted. I'm not sure whether it's only me, but it seems like you are muted.
Now we can hear
now?
Lizelle. Maybe we can hear you, Lizelle.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes, the next question that we have from our attendees is, will AARTO personnel and in the back office be able to deal with all the load of admin with AARTO being implemented nationally?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead.
Seems like Lizelle is having challenges there, but I can see the question: will the AARTO personnel be able to deal with a lot of admin?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes. When this AARTO system is rolled out nationally, obviously, even the capacity that comes with the magnitude of the project or the program, it must be increased accordingly. So the more admin we are having, the more staff members we will need to bring on board to ensure that the time frames that are coming straight from the legislations are adhered to accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mondi. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Lizelle, we can hear you. And
okay,
we've been hearing you. I'm not sure.
Be allocated if the offender
I think Kwazi can't
does
hear
not
us.
pay the fine. Okay. We did mention during our presentations with Mr. Mkalipi that even if you ignore the traffic fine, there will be a courtesy letter, which is like a reminder. Then there is an enforcement order. The enforcement order, it means that points will be allocated even if there's an enforcement order.
Okay, thank you, Kwazi. I think it looks like you are the only person that can hear me, so I'm just going to go on. With old unpaid fines longer than 3 years old, will they be wiped off the system? Will there be the prescription period apply? Mondi, Busi, will you be able to answer this?
Mr. Mapoloba will answer. I just notified him that he can't hear us, but we can read from the screen.
That cannot hear Lizelle, but I was advised to continue reading and answering questions because it seems like you can hear me, but I cannot hear you.
Okay.
I'm not sure what is the problem this time. Will old unpaid fines longer than 3 years old be wiped off the system, the prescription period? Okay, the AARTO infringement notices, they don't prescribe, unfortunately. As long as there's an enforcement order, the person will be held liable up until that fine is paid or enforcement order is revoked. But there's no prescription period in terms of the AARTO Act. You will be held liable for the rest of your life if you don't pay.
Okay, thank you, Kwazi. Next one is, please explain the 3 months for every point above.
So please explain the 3 months for every point above 15. Yes. We have a threshold of 15. Let's say today, caught for drunken driving. Then after 2 days or so, you are found guilty. You have 6 points on your name. Then next week, cross the red robot. We have 4 points allocated. You are at 10. Then the week after that, you have a situation whereby you drive without wearing a seatbelt. Then you are at 13. Then a day after that, you again cross a red traffic light. Then you have 13 plus 4, which is 17. Once you're at 17 points, every point above 15 amounts to 3 months suspension. So 2 points above 15, which is 17 points, will amount to 6 months suspension. Thank you.
As an employer of drivers,
if my drivers do not have, or if my driver does not have a license, then is not fit for work. You can also rehabilitate him as well as pay for him to be off work. What option would the drivers have for income? Yes. Like we said, that this is why, one of the reasons why we have the demerit points. People must think of these harsh situations, which will make them think twice before committing a traffic violation. But again, I did say that it's not all the violations that will carry demerit points, only the serious ones that are causing fatalities. But it's very important to educate your drivers, like Giselle was saying earlier, educate them about Arto, what are the consequences, and also tell them that this might end up causing you to lose your job if you don't respect the rules of the road. So it's better to be proactive than being reactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwasi.
How long will it take to re-register your license after it has been cancelled? Okay, let's say you exceeded the threshold for the third time, or suspended for the third time, which amounts to a cancellation, and you are at 17 points there. In terms of Section 28 of the Arto Act, that means 6 months. You spend 6 months without reapplying for your license or your learner's license up until you are back at 15. Then you can be able to apply for your learner's license. Or another option, you can attend the rehabilitation program. Maybe it takes about a week. Then you are back under 15 or at 15. Then you'll be allowed to apply for your license. So only when you are back at threshold, which is 15 points or below, then you'll be able to reapply for your license that has been cancelled. Yes. Motor insurance policies. I'm not sure how is the industry going to react, but from where I sit, this will work like a tool for insurance companies to see if you are a risky driver or not. Obviously, if you are a habitual infringer, if they check maybe your demerit points, maybe they will have conditions that they will have to amend on their policies as well, whereby you can give consent to them to access your demerit point status or your demerit points history, so that they can see what type of a driver you are. Then obviously that will have an impact on the monthly premium that you are paying, because the more risk you are posing to their business, the more money they will charge you, because they expect that you can commit an accident at any time if you are a habitual driver or a high-risk driver, or a habitual infringer or a high-risk driver. So I think they will use this to measure the risk as well, as far as their business is concerned. Thank you.
Yes, I'm just going to add on to what Kwasi has said there. We have had discussions with various insurance companies in South Africa and some of the big companies as well. And all of them have informed us that part of their claiming process will be that they will request a printout to see if you have an active or a suspended license. And if the driver has a suspended license, then the policy, the claim will not be paid out. Okay, so that is how it will definitely, the other side of how it will affect your insurance policies. I'm not sure if Kwasi can hear me yet.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I'm going to read the question. If a driver has an outstanding ticket while driving a company vehicle, can the vehicle be impounded? And I believe that would be if the vehicle maybe has a suspended license or the driver has a suspended license. What will happen in a situation like that?
Yeah. This issue of impounding vehicles, most of the time it lies with the discretion of the officer on the road. But what I can tell you, if you have a ticket while driving a company vehicle, having a ticket, an infringement notice, it does not mean that you are not allowed to drive. Okay? Outstanding ticket does not mean that you are not allowed to drive. Even if you have an enforcement order, you will be allowed to drive. The only time when you won't be allowed to drive is when you have exceeded the threshold and you are suspended or cancelled. So it's the driver that can be arrested for driving without a valid license once it's suspended or cancelled. But the vehicle, maybe it can be driven by another traffic officer to the station where maybe the proxy can be contacted and be told that no, this person cannot drive this vehicle, so you can come and fetch your vehicle. But if it's the vehicle now that is not roadworthy, or whereby maybe the traffic officer, some of them, they say if they see, they have a standard, if they see 3 violations, maybe related to roadworthiness of the vehicle, then they see that the tires are smooth, steering is not, or the brakes are not functioning well, and the lights or the indicators are not working, then they can say, okay, I found 3 things that are not right with this vehicle. Then it can be impounded, and can even be suspended, and they can say you can apply for, you can go for fix the vehicle and take it for a roadworthiness test. So that can still happen. It's also happening currently with the Criminal Procedure Act. And again, it can be impounded if it's suspended and is still operating. So there are different circumstances here, and some can be at the discretion of the traffic officer that is dealing with those violations.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kwazi. Okay, what happens in the case where the registration, no plates or plates are cloned and the fines are issued through, although the vehicle was not present? So I think there's a lot of, in certain areas, there's a lot of cloning of the license plates that happened, and fines will then get allocated to a company or a driver, and it's not really their fines. What will the driver or the company be able to do in those situations? Can they hand in representations on those situations? And what proof will they need to give, if I can ask it that way?
They can hand in representations, and the proof that can be acceptable. These cloned matters, sometimes they delay, but the proof that is normally acceptable, if the company keeps proper records, and maybe when they give this person a vehicle, he signs somewhere, and the roads are recorded. Some they even provide us copies from tracking companies showing that this time the vehicle was in Pretoria, but I'm getting a fine saying that it was in Joburg. At some point, if it's not companies and it's a vehicle without a tracker or any other proof, we even request them to take the vehicle for maybe inspection at the traffic departments. Traffic departments, they have some unit that deals with cloned vehicles. Sometimes you can see a photo that, okay, it's a white VW Polo, and another one is still a white VW Polo. But most of the time, there are differences, slight differences, that a person can say, no, mine is not like this, it does not have that sticker there, or there are differences. So a representation will have to be made, and if possible, with a proof of where was the vehicle at that particular point in time.
Yes. Okay, Kwazi. I think the photos will be very important there as well, especially if it's a camera fine, like you say. You can indicate if it's your vehicle or not with the photos as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then the next one, if my license is suspended, will my company still be liable to pay my salary? I'm going to answer this one, Kwazi, if you don't mind. I think this all goes back to your corporate governance and your policies and your procedures and the education of your staff. If as a company you didn't upskill your driver, you have no policies and procedures in place and nothing like that in place, then the company will still be liable to pay the salary if there's no policies in place. If, according to the labor law, you don't have a policy and procedure for if a driver's license is suspended, how you are going to deal with that driver. So it comes back to, you need to implement your policies and procedures. You need to train your staff so that your employees will actually know what is going on and what is expected of them. If they do get a suspended license, what are the procedures going to be from the company side? So yes, if the company doesn't implement a policy and a procedure according to labor regulations, then definitely you will be they will have to pay your salary. But if they do implement the policies and procedures effectively, and they've upskilled you and trained you in driving and AARTO Act, then they won't be liable to pay your salary. I've got some other questions as well, from Trevelyan Blunting on chat, to say to implement the policy and procedures at our company now before the act is improved. What information must be used for these documents? I can just want to inform you that as part of our HR implementation and managers course, we actually provide you with a policy template that has been drawn up according to the AARTO Act, and this you can use as a base for your policy and procedure documents. It's a very good guideline as well. So if that is something that you're interested in, you are more than welcome to contact me after the session. Is there anything you would like to add to this, Kwazi, or do you think I can move on?
I think you can move on, Lisa. You have covered everything.
Okay. This one is basically ties in with the previous one. Is the employer responsible for transportation costs such as Uber or public transport if the employee's license was suspended? Again, that all depends on what policies and procedures you have put in place, how you have upskilled your staff. You know, a lot of people think AARTO will only affect drivers of logistic companies. No, it is going to affect your sales staff that need their license to basically fulfill their duties. Anybody that relies on their vehicle to fulfill their duties in a company will be affected by AARTO if they are not trained and they do not understand the Act. So again, the employee will be responsible for the transportation costs if they were upskilled and they understand what what is expected of them within the company according to the company's policies and procedures when it comes to AARTO. Then the next question, I'm going to move to you, Kwazi. When will the proclamation be published? Do you have any indication of that date?
Yeah, I don't have an indication of that date.
Okay.
Because that is in the hands of the minister advising the president of the dates that will be relevant. So I don't want to commit to any date right now, but Monday can also come in as far as this question is concerned.
Okay. Mondi?
Yes, thank you so much, Lizelle and Adamapolo. Yes, Kwazi is correct to say it's going to depend on the communication between the minister and the president. At the same time, on our side, we also need to provide information that really satisfies these offices in terms of state of readiness, which is what we are working on. That state of readiness is also inclusive of this public education drive that we are doing right now. It's also inclusive of the appointment of the members of the tribunal. It's also inclusive of ensuring that the electronic service that we spoke about, connectivity, post office, issuing authorities, those systems are in place. So it's quite inclusive of many things that we need to make sure that they are in place before we can provide such a report. Even the issue, 213 municipalities across the country, all of them, they need to be ready for the rollout, because the AARTO Act is quite clear in terms of saying these new provisions that are contained in the amended legislation, the setting up of the points demerit system, the appointment of the members of the tribunal, the electronic service, the setting up, the rehabilitation program. There are particular times in which these need to be in place before the president can really make that proclamation. So it's dependent on these preparations that we are doing currently. And we hope that it's a task that we are able to complete as soon as possible. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Mondi, for that. Yes, we understand that completely, and we will wait for that date. Then the next question is, what will happen if you still have any fines outstanding by the inception time of the demerit point system starting? As far as I'm aware, and you can just correct me if I'm wrong, but any fines that you receive up until the demerit point system comes into effect, whether those fines fall under the Criminal Procedure Act or the AARTO Act, they will follow their due course, and fines under the Criminal Procedure Act, as far as I understand, they're not just going to be cancelled, they will follow their due course, and new fines, your demerits will only be for new points from when the demerit point system starts. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct, Lisa.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry, I just want to go to the questions where you guys need to answer before we end the session at 2. What will happen to the truck and the load on the spot where the driver is deemed to lose his last points? I think Kwasi has already answered that question, so I'm just going to move on to the next one. I think we've also answered this question. What will happen with a driver that lost all his merits and can't perform his duties? That is something that you as a company need to set up in your policies and procedure. Again, I want to reiterate, you need to train your drivers. A driver will not be held, you won't be able to hold a driver responsible for accidents or be able to reprimand them if they have a suspended license if you do not have your policies and procedures in place and you have not trained your driver efficiently in Upskill or in AARTO. Sorry. Then where can a driver check the AARTO update? And those who do not have access to online, what other options do they have? Is that a question that you guys want to answer?
Yes, thank you. If people don't have access to internet, it means they can still use the old ways of doing things, whereby you can visit your nearest licensing office, then you can check the status there.
Okay, that's perfect. And I know you are opening AARTO service centers all across South Africa, so they would be able to go to these centers as well to get assistance there. Then which one platform will consolidate traffic fines for drivers? Am I correct in saying that the AARTO system on the AARTO website will be the place where you will be able to view all your fines nationally on AARTO?
Correct, Lisa. Currently, you have different websites for different traffic departments, but with AARTO, there'll be this one site with all the fines, whether they were committed in Cape Town or Johannesburg or Free State, all will be accessible via the AARTO official website.
That is absolutely fantastic news. From my background in fine management, to have one place where you can access all your fines, that is going to make the management of traffic fines for companies so much easier. So I want to thank you guys for that wonderful system. It's absolutely an easy system to use, and it's built fantastically. So thank you for that system. Moving on to the next question, will law enforcement and employers be able to see drivers' points? And will companies be able to terminate drivers based on incapacity? I think we've also answered this question already. Yes, you will be able to see your driver's points and to view it. There will be a cost involved, and you will need the consent due to POPI of your driver to be able to monitor their points. And again, the policies and procedures is very important here.
Yeah, sorry, Lizette. Let me just come in with the law enforcement part.
Okay, not a problem.
Of accessing demerit points.
Okay.
Here, you will have traffic officers on the side of the road. These traffic officers or these law enforcers on the side of the road, when they issue an infringement notice, they will not be able to access your demerit status. Okay. The reason for that is that there's a lot of bribery incidents that can be stimulated by such an access, whereby maybe you can have corrupt traffic officers telling people to pay bribes, or they will issue a fine that will amount to such an or a fine that will end up having someone's driving license suspended or cancelled. So to avoid that, the traffic officers on the road will not have access to the people's demerit points. They'll just be able to capture and advise that this violations carry so many points, but they won't be able to access the driver's demerit data on the side of the road. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mondi. Okay, our next question, will people be allowed to appeal a demerit? If yes, what will the process be?
Yes, like I have said that you have a situation whereby these demerit points, they are allocated when you pay, which is an acceptance of guilt when you make what you call, when you make an arrangement to pay an installment, or when an enforcement order is issued, or when you are found guilty in the court of law. So remember that these demerit points, they can only be allocated based on those events. So if an enforcement order was issued and it's led to demerit points, you are not going to challenge demerit points, but you are challenging the enforcement order for a particular violation. Once that enforcement order is revoked, the demerit points will be reversed as well. If you are found guilty in court, you can appeal. Then if your appeal is successful, then the demerit points will be reversed. So you won't be challenging demerit points as points, but you challenge the violation. Then if you are successful with challenging the violation, then the points are reversed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwazi. I just have one question. We are running out of time, and I know that we need to finish at 2. So I just have one question that I want to ask you. The other questions we will have to hopefully leave to a next session, if we will be able to do a next session with you guys. But I would, and we will answer the questions best we can to the attendees afterwards. The one question that I want to ask you as well is, that has come up in the chat as well, is what happens at the rehabilitation program? What will the duration of the program be, and will there be a cost to the rehabilitation program? If you can maybe just answer that last one for me, and then we can end the session.
Thank you. There will be a cost, but I cannot share the cost now because it's not yet approved. Those regulations are not yet approved, but there is a cost. And what will happen? You will have different types of rehabilitation program, but the RTIA was looking at starting with a generic rehabilitation program, which will be similar to like a refresher training for the drivers, whereby you can have a course that can take about a week, refreshing on the road traffic laws, the signs, similar to a learner's type of course, and also on tips about road safety, the state of people who are driving on our roads, the impact to the economy as far as the violations are concerned, and what are the good practices for drivers to avoid such in the future. So it will be like a refresher course for people that they must have how they're supposed to behave. But as time goes by, we are foreseeing a situation whereby we can have tailor-made or we can have customized a rehabilitation program, whereby you can have one for people with a problem, maybe for alcohol, or we have one maybe with speeding violations, and it can be focused on the type of a driver or the type of violations, but it will start with just a general one, focusing on the behavior on the road and the traffic laws. 1 week is what we are looking at as a duration. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwazi. Thank you so much for. I want to thank all of our panelists and our guest speakers, Kwazi, Mondi, Busi. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and for sharing everything that you have with us. It was definitely valuable information, and I can just see in the chat from the start that people said that the information was very informative and very, very interesting. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that we can host more sessions like this in the future with you, and we look forward to that. But thank you again from my side, from Upskill Academy side, for you guys for joining us today and for sharing this knowledge with us. Also, I want to thank all the attendees. Thank you for joining. We really enjoyed having you all of here. I will go through the questions that are still in the chat box, and I will send out a link to the actual replay of this video, and I will try to answer your questions best. If there's any questions that I need to get the answers from Kwazi or Mondi, I will definitely contact them and get that information through to you if there's anything that you still need. But thank you very much, everybody. I will send an email through to you with all the information and the replay. And yes, I look forward to hearing from some of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Busi. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mondi.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Busi.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.
Bye.